declared brain dead, we have consent from next of kin. They have to be stable and they must have no diseases. Next slide, please. Individuals who sustain head injury from a motor vehicle accident in the United States, a gunshot wound. More commonly, frankly, our donors are individuals with sudden unexpected hemorrhage into the brain, tumors, other causes of brain death. Next slide. And let me tell you that the diagnosis of brain death is an unequivocal, no questions asked diagnosis. It is a solid diagnosis. This is not, we think they're a little brain dead. This is a ironclad diagnosis. And frankly, transplantation has a higher standard, that is brain death, than is necessary in the intensive care unit for intensivists to simply turn off the ventilator. Brain death was developed in 1968 by the Harvard criteria. In 1974, Canadian guidelines were developed. And next slide, there's a lot of hoops that the intensive care doctor has to jump through to prove someone brain dead. Let me first of all remind you that the only person who can declare brain death is an individual who has nothing to do with the transplant program. There is no conflict of interest here. No conflict of interest whatsoever. I can't declare brain death. Total conflict of interest. There's a whole bunch of medical things that we have to put this potential donor through to prove the diagnosis of brain death. Next slide. This is for the doctors. I have to teach the medical students how to make this diagnosis. Next slide. Once the diagnosis of brain death is made, we approach the family. The signing of an organ donor card is a valuable thing. But frankly, for those of us promoting organ donation, it is more symbolic than effective. Because those of us promoting organ donation will say, sign your donor card and discuss it with your family. We don't rifle through the wallet of someone in the intensive care unit looking to see if they signed a donor card. We don't do that. We approach families. If they have the wallet and look at it and see that Bill wanted to donate, or more importantly, we talked about that, you bet he wanted to donate. And this is his chance. This is our opportunity to at least derive some good out of this tragic event. So we get next of kin consent. Next slide. And we move to organ. Organ donation is based upon altruism. We talked about that earlier this evening. That the altruism that someone is going to give their loved one's organs, heart, lung, liver, kidney, to pass on life to other people. While that is an altruistic act, the gift of life, we mustn't forget that the doctor and the nurse at the bedside are equally altruistic because they have to take care of this individual. They have to help the family through this. And quite frankly, the whole organ donation process depends on the doctor or the nurse at the bedside to initiate the process. Someone's got to say, hey, you think this person might be an organ donor. You can't rely on families to initiate that. This is a sudden tragic loss of life. Someone has to initiate the process, and right now, it's the doctors and the nurses at the bedside upon whose altruism we are able to pass on life. A component of altruism that we must not ignore, and I frankly think a group of individuals that need more attention in the area of promotion of organ donation. Next slide, please. Okay, well, the demand clearly has exceeded the supply. The consequences, very profound. Not everybody gets on the transplant waiting list. I tell folk every week, I'm sorry, but your risk for transplantation is too high. I'd love to be able to transplant you. I got OR time, I got sutures, I got nurses, I got beds, but I don't have organs, and your risk is too high. I'm sorry. For liver, for heart, for kidney. So we limit the patients who get on the transplant waiting list. What a terrible thing. Time waiting. John talked about the time waiting. Next slide. Look at this. These are the time waitings for kidney transplantation, liver transplantation. Look at lung. Lung transplantation just blossom between 84 and 85. Hearts, you know, they really limit the patients who get on the transplant waiting list. So the heart wait is well, frankly, they can't wait that long. So there's a natural selection off the list. But this is absolutely unacceptable, and all the other countries throughout the world have this increasing wait time. The list is the liver transplant waiting list in Ontario. There are 200 people on this waiting list. 20% of these people are going to die before liver comes to it. Terrible thing. These are my patients. But I can't transplant them. And you flip through this to find the blood type O patient who's sitting at the top of the list waiting at home, and that person was listed in October 1996. 2.5 years. Eking out an existence at home. That's terrible. Terrible thing. Next slide. That's the problem. And this is the source of the problem. Organ donation has plateaued in Canada over the past 5 years. There have been 350 to 400 organ donors in Canada. And it's really, if you're a half-full person, rosy glasses, you might say there's a trend. But this is not a dramatic or impressive trend at all. Next slide, please. And this happens across Canada. Sorry for the busy slide, different colors for different years. Here's Ontario at 13.5 donors per million population. Don't get me wrong, this is not a nice number to talk about the number of donors per million population. It's not like we wish it upon anybody, but if you're going to look at a problem, you've got to analyze it. 13.5, and that's the Canadian average, 13.5 donors per million population. Where do we fit in the world? Well, we fit right here between Austria and Hungary in the organ donation race in the world. With Spain, United States, France, Portugal, France, United Kingdom, Scandinavian countries doing exceedingly better than us. And I'm going to show you a little more detail here on Spain and the US because let me show you the potential. Next slide, please. This is the United States from, what's that, 90 to 95? Is that what that is? 89 to 95. There's been an increase from about 15 to about 22. And look at Spain. Spain has doubled their organ donor rate. Some of those of you who are following organ donation will hear us talking about the Spanish model, in which every intensive care unit in Spain has a professional whose full-time, whose half-time job is to promote organ donation and facilitate the process. Approach families, speak Spanish to the Spanish, but to do it properly. And look at the results. Here's the potential. We're right here. There's where we are. And we have the potential for at least doubling our organ donor rate. Can you imagine the impact it would have on this list? Next slide, please. There's a lot of support for organ donation. Lots of surveys have been done. The public at large, 80% of people would sign their donor card, and 85 would consent to their loved ones' organs. There is support by the public. The government, there is support from the government. There's legislation, there are required request laws. This document came out 2 months ago. This is the result of the Standing Committee on Health. Alan Rocks has to respond to that over the next 90 days. And this is entitled Organ and Tissue Donation and Transplantation, a Canadian Approach. They interviewed dozens and dozens and dozens of people. Basically, they've written down what we've been telling them for about a decade now. And it looks like the feds are going to put serious coin to the problem of organ donation in this country. I'm not a businessman, but businessmen say, think globally, but act locally. And that's what we're doing here. They can do all of these sorts of things. But if we want something done in Toronto, we've got to do something in Toronto and in Ontario. And perhaps we can influence the rest of the country. Next slide, please. So, there are some solutions. Increasing local organ donation clearly is the most important thing we have to do. I will pass now on some of the desperate measures we've gone through to increase the utilization of the organs that are offered to us. Next slide, please. John has to show any gory slides, so those who are expecting the gory pictures, they're not coming. What are the barriers to organ donation? Well, there is a lack of awareness. There's no question there's a lack of awareness. I surround myself and transplant people, and the other transplant recipients here are part of the family. They are aware. But you know, you go and have dinner with a dozen other people, they thought about organ donation, never happened to me. So there is a lack of awareness, and step by step, I think this is one of the most important things that step by step can do, is at the grassroots level, increase the level of awareness that this is something that is the norm. I want to live in a society in which we were talking about presumed consent, where the government can just take your body and take your organs. I don't think that's right. Personally, I want to live in a society in which there's presumed intent. That when we stand at the bedside,